What's up, YouTube? My name is Kay, and I am here to finally kickstart this channel that I started like 3 years ago and never posted. But let me tell you, it's been a fucking ride. So I guess I'm going to start off with the transits, okay? First and foremost, this channel is going to be about my spiritual journey. It's sort of like a journal for me, and I'm hoping that I can share my experiences with everybody out there. And hopefully, if there's anyone that is experiencing something similar, that maybe, they'll be able to find um, some comfort, you know what I'm saying, in knowing that they are not alone in their experience. So 2025 is coming in with a bang. And, you know, for Virgos, because, I'm a Virgo, you know, it, January was supposed to be like a slow month. Let me tell you something. When February decided to come in, it wasted no time. So let me tell you just a little bit, right? So I've been following astrology since I was 15 years old. Make note of that. And I never made a huge deal of it, but I did notice how it helped me read people. Now, keep in mind that I have always had a natural gift to read people, but I never really paid much attention to it because, I come from a family that is full of religious fanatics. So, the transits for this month, right? The first thing I read is, February 4th, Jupiter's going direct in Gemini, Venus is entering Aries, and you can expect big announcements and some clarity on some very important issues. Okay, let me tell you something. Since I started the spiritual journey back in 2015, take note of that. I have had to, go through some experiences. My biggest challenge has been the ever passing change, right? And as a Virgo, I have serious control issues. I'm always trying to be 10 steps ahead. I'm always trying to you know, plan my shit out, right? But unfortunately, that's just not how things work. And the universe is gonna pan its way out to teach you your lessons, okay? So with that being said, I knew that there are lessons to learn every day. This is ongoing as long as you are on your journey, and the journey never ends until you die. But I felt like I had made a lot of progress. And I don't know. I was like, well, I've pretty much embraced change. I'm the type of person that when you're telling me that change is gonna come, I'll be like, bring it. You know what I mean? Because that's all I've known. That's the theme in my life, having to deal with change. Let me tell you how February 3rd, this shit kicked off. I went to bed February 3rd, and February 4th was let me get an introduction. Let February 3rd introduce me because, it's going to be real. And it's been a rough couple of days because of this transit. And, you guys should probably know, I don't just follow astrology. I also follow tarot. I myself read tarot. I use it for self, discovery and, self-help. And I also follow numerology because I noticed that numbers are they play a really big part in my life. Okay. just a consistency that I picked up on, throughout the years. So, I had to familiarize myself with this. So, another thing is, like I mentioned, Venus enters Aries or whatever, and Aries is currently retro. So, Venus is supposed to be stronger than Aries right now, or Mars, you know, and I should probably reflect on the part of my chart that was affected, 7 years ago, which what this is 2025. So 2018, I'm supposed to like think about where this was taking place last time, in my chart last year. Or, I mean, sorry, 2018. Well, I will say this much. Aries in my natal chart is in my fourth house, which is the house of home and family. I was in a shelter back then. So I'm not really looking forward to whatever this Venus going retro in Aries entanglement situation. Okay. I think that right now my situation is okay. I am looking forward to moving later on this year, but I'm just not gonna think that far ahead. All right. Moving on. So because I'm used to dealing with change, I was like, okay, whatever's, bring it. I'm all for it. You know what I'm saying? It's just whoop de doo, just another change in my life. Okay. So come February 3rd, I go to bed. I have a restless night. And I'm just sitting there and I'm trying to like calm my thoughts down because I deal with that a lot. I deal with a lot of racing thoughts. I'm thinking about, hey, yo, like it's gonna be 3 years since like my dog Sienna passed away. You know what I mean? And I was like, I still haven't done anything with her ashes. I'm like, I need to figure that out. And then all of a sudden, I started to remember the recurring theme throughout January. Like for some reason, since like the end of December, actually, so like about the last week of December, and then more increasingly throughout January, the topic of pets has keep coming up, right? And I'm like, okay, people are like, hey, you have a pet, right? I'm like, no, no, my kids got pets. I had a pet, it passed away a few years ago. And like, oh, okay. And then eventually somebody goes, hey, uh, are you gonna get another pet? I'm not looking for a pet, you know what I mean? But I'm open to it. I'm just not looking. I think that if it naturally surfaces, like somebody, like, hey, this dog or whatever, then I'm like, okay, I'm open. So for some reason, I go to get my hair done. And let me tell you, this lady, I know I've had conversations with her about this before. And she was like, because you have a dog, right? I was like, no, I told you my dog passed away a few years ago. She was like, oh, for some reason I kept thinking you have a dog. She was like, you must have had a pit bull, right? Because you look like somebody who has a pit bull. Yes, actually, she was a pit bull. You know what I mean? But at this point, I'm catching on, right? I'm catching on to the messages. And then it hits me. Well, I still haven't got rid of her ashes. Like, I haven't, like, really released her to the universe. What the fuck was that for? I just broke the fuck down. I just started crying because at that precise moment, it hit me like, oh, Karen, you haven't let her go. Keep in mind that my tarot cards, tarot readers keep reminding, like, somebody out there needs to let something go, something they've been carrying. Like the 10 of Wands is like, let me tell you something. The 10 of Wands, like 10 of Swords, 9 of Swords, these cards, 8 of Swords, like, they stay popping up for me, right? So I was like, okay. I mean, I feel pretty lighthearted. I'm focused right now. I'm trying to do my own thing. I'm trying to get my side hustle going. I got shit popping off. You know, I'm not trying to like dwell on anything, but at this particular moment at night, I'm like breaking down because I realized that I haven't necessarily released my dog. Okay. And there's certain realities that come with that. Well, sit back because I'm about to give you a little backstory. So, you know, 15 years ago, okay, so I got divorced, actually, by December 2009. And by May of 2010, I had left New York. And that divorce left me depleted. Like, I was not me. I could not even recognize myself. I was angry. I was bitter. I was resentful. I just, I just wasn't who I normally was. And, I had three kids, I'm a single mom, and I have to like help these children like heal, and I'm trying to nurture them, and I'm trying to give them a fresh start in a new state. You know, I had moved to Pennsylvania, and we basically all needed to go through our healing process. Let me tell you, that shit would prove to be much harder than I could ever imagine. So, while this is going through a process and I'm nurturing my children, and I'm trying to help them, move forward and get them therapy and all this other stuff, you know, I realized that I needed something a little bit more immediate for myself. Now, I wasn't gonna just go ahead and jump into another relationship. That is not how I roll. But I needed to counter my rage. I needed to counter my bitterness with love. So I decided I was going to get a puppy. And out of all the puppies, I decided I was going to get a Yorkie. Because Yorkies are small and they're cute and they don't take a lot of space and everybody loves them, right? Well, I had just reconnected with my friend who just so happened to be living in Pennsylvania as well. And he says, "Oh, come over, blah, blah, blah." I go over to his house. Come to find out, this guy has like a freaking zoo. Okay, he had a freaking cockatoo. He had like four freaking dogs. He had a cat. He had some other stuff going on there. I was like, what in the world is going on? So it just so happens that out of his four dogs, right, you had this poodle mix that was a couple steps from death. Rest in peace. And then he had these three big pit bulls, two females and a male. And the male had jumped on both the females. So at this particular time, the females had their litters, and now there were two litters, and they were like, I think the puppies were like 4 weeks or 5 weeks old or something like that. This happened, they were born around the end of October. So here goes my youngest child, my daughter. She's like, hey, can we have a puppy? I'm like, this bitch really just went ahead and asked for a fucking pit bull. At that time, I had my own biases about pit bulls. You know what I'm saying? I just didn't. I was kind of with everybody else. I'm usually a little bit more unorthodox and I usually follow my own lead. But I was a bit nervous. Like, I'd been through some shit. You know what I mean? And I just didn't know if a pit bull was going to be the dog for me. Okay? But I was like, yo, fuck it. You know what I'm saying? I've been looking for a freaking puppy, and these freaking Yorkies are running as much as whether you're adopting them or buying them, they're just kind of running the same amount of money, like $2,500 plus. And I'm like, what kind of party do you think this is? Like, I'm broke. So I look apprehensively, I look at my friend. I was like, yo, bro. Because it was like, oh, yeah, we'll give you one for Christmas, blah, blah, blah. I said, give me a boy. Make sure he's not a barker. And I don't want a whiner. Because I ain't got the patience for that. I left it at that. He's like, oh, don't worry, Karen, I got you. Bet. So he's like, come back in 2 weeks. You know, the dogs will be weaned off their mom. 1 week. It took 1 week for this to happen, right? All of a sudden, I'm getting a text. He's like, hey, Karen, you know, the dogs are ready, that, you know, they're eating solid food, blah, blah, blah. He was like, however, he sent me a text, right? He was, however, I picked a dog for you, but it's not a boy. It's a girl. But Karen, she's perfect for you. She's Karen, like, I know her, like, I saw her and I thought of you, and she's just, you're gonna love her. Okay. I rolled my eyes at the text. I was like, whatever, fuck it. So I go to PetSmart, I buy the bare necessities, and I pick up my bestie, I pick up my kids, we go and we're gonna pick up this pit bull. So the pit bull, I end up carrying in my arms, and it's just this big ball of wrinkles. Okay. And she had like these blue eyes because she was a puppy. But as she got older, they would turn into like this beautiful yellow, like honey. And I go ahead and I decide to name her Sienna. Sienna Sage. Okay. Sienna because of her color, because she was like this gold brown. I like to refer to it as like a strawberry blonde, but it's like a goldish brown. She was a red nose, and sage is for the healing herb, right? You know, clearing out negative energies, inviting balance, and issuing in wisdom, which I desperately needed at the time. So Sienna would basically, by the time she was 3 months old, this dog was like fully trained. Like, training her was like so easy. I can't. She was just like, I was like, all right, you're falling in line. I fucks with that. Okay. Well, I had to go through the cycles of my trauma, and Sienna would prove to be my emotional support dog. Sienna loved all my kids, and my kids loved Sienna. And she was particularly overzealous of my son for some reason that I couldn't understand. I think it's because he's narcoleptic due to his sleep apnea, but whatever. And she knew, like, she had a clear understanding of the the pack structure, right? She understood that I was pack leader and my son was second in command, and he was responsible for watching over the girls. And you know, I had a lot of shit to work through. You know what I'm saying? And at the time, I was going to therapy. I ended up getting on psychiatric medication, and I was white knuckling my way through so much shit. And nobody, I should have probably seen the red flags, you know what I'm saying, back then, because like today I kind of like, you know, find myself reflecting like, you know, who my friends really are, you know, but I found myself kind of like going through this shit by myself, and nobody really cared. Like, I didn't really have that support. Everybody just kind of went about their business, and they were like completely unmoved as to like what I was going through and the deterioration of my mental and emotional state. And I'm sitting here experiencing my different psychosis, and through it all, it was Sienna who was there. Keep in mind that I had ups and downs and really low downs, and the low down eventually landed me in a padded room for a night. You know what I mean? So when I came out and, got myself home, nobody was there to greet me. Nobody was there to like check up on me and make sure that I was okay. It was Sienna. Sienna was at the door. Sienna could smell me from like half a mile away. She was like, "Oh, mom's coming home." You know what I mean? So I'm going to give you a quick rundown, okay? So that you understand the reason why I follow numerology and the consistencies that I've seen, okay? I've noticed that 7s, 9s, and 15s are like pivotal in my life for whatever reason. Every time this amount of years or whatever, or days or weeks or whatever has happened, something kind of like turns up, right? So when you look at 7s, right? 25, 32, 39, 25 years old, I found my first white gray hair. And I started to really experience the dysfunction in my relationship. And I like to call it the beginning of the end. But it was a long beginning to the end. It kind of dragged. It's kind of like when the wheel is turning and you kind of put a wedge in there, and it's like that. By the time I was 32, I was having like the worst time of my life, because by then that's when I was on a strict psychiatric medication regimen. Okay. 39, let me see, that was what? 2018? I think it was. I think by then I had started to make the decision that I was going to leave. I was going to leave New York. I'm not even going to ask what the hell 46 is going to bring, because I'm not ready. I'm not ready. They say that 2026 is going to be like the year. I hope so, because the other few years, those other years were not working out for me. However, in 2015, when I had my nervous break and I landed in a freaking padded room, what happened after that would kickstart my journey up to this point. Okay? Keep that number in mind. That's an important year. 15 was when, I was 15 years old when I started following astrology. I was 30 years old when I went through this crazy divorce. At 45, which is what I am right now, what the fuck? I don't I don't know what's happening right now. Okay, I just turned 45 in September. I don't know what to expect from that. It's the stay tuned. It's a stay tuned year for me. And it's already kicking off with some fuck shit, because as you can see, I've been having a rough couple of days. Okay, today is the 5th. Today is the 5th. Okay, and February 3rd and February 4th have been pretty rough for me. Okay, 9 is a pivotal number for me because my birthday is 9/9. And for whatever reason, no matter what, that number keeps coming up. So for me, it started for like, I guess, when I was 17 years old. I was married 9 days after my 17th birthday. Okay, my mother signed me off. And I was still 17 by the time my son was born. Okay, because I got pregnant soon after, and my son was born in July. So I wasn't even 18 years old. Okay. By the time I was 36, I had left Pennsylvania, I had moved back to New York, and I ended up starting like a whole new industry. Like, I had gone to school for computers, I had gone to school for business, and for some reason I am now working as a union millwright. I'm in the blue collar trades. I don't know where my career is supposed to go. I don't know why I'm here. Okay? And then that brings us back to 45. The fuck? I don't know. Stay tuned. I guess we'll find out, right? The thing about it is that through all of this, right, you have your every 7 years, you have every 9 years, you got every 15 years, and eventually, at some point, these, depending on when they kickstarted, right, they overlap. And when they overlap, chaos reigns. Like waves in the ocean when they crash, or like the earth when it has like erosions and shit. You know what I mean? Like, just pure chaos. And so, since my journey, my spiritual journey, what I feel is my real spiritual journey started, you know, it started in 2015. And since then, I've had some like intense moments. So, 2022, 7 years since 2015. 7 years exactly to the day from when I landed in that padded room. I had taken my dog to the vet, and she had been getting some seizures or whatever, and I needed to have make sure that my dog was on the up and up. Like, I need you to find out what's going on. you know and they were like, okay, we're gonna send you an estimate. So I'm like, okay, fine. I went to sleep. That was on a Thursday. Before That was the Thursday before Valentine's Day. I'm not even gonna try to calculate what day that was. Friday, I had an intense dream. Keep in mind that 7 years ago, I was on psychiatric meds. And I was on psychiatric meds for about 3.5 years or something like that. And what the psychiatric meds did to me was that they really, really disconnected me. So when I started the spiritual journey, I felt so disconnected. Number one, I discovered that I am an empath. And all the diagnosis that I was getting from the psychotherapist and the psychiatrist were all bullshit, right? Because in Pennsylvania, they love to prescribe medication. That's how they make their money, I guess. So they just out here like, oh, sure, we got you on Abilify, they got you on Seroquel, they got you on whatever. So eventually what ended up happening was, like, I was like this thing had really blocked my nerves. Like, I was completely just disconnected. So when 22 comes around and I'm finally starting to have intense dreams, and I'm like, oh great, I'm finally, because I was always a dreamer. Before I started taking medication, I was always a dreamer, and I used to be able to tell when shit was going to go down. But because of that time period, now I had to kind of like work my way back to reconnect with myself. So in 2022, I'm having this dream, and it was a really intense dream. And in this dream, I was assaulted. Okay. And in that assault, there was this sense of like, you're going to have to take it. Right. I'm not trying to trigger anybody, by the way, but this is just, this is what I went through. And in my dream. And after all the things was said and done, there was this dragonfly that was like hovering in front of me. Now, I hate bugs, and usually when a bug comes around me, like I go the other way, like I book it. But for some reason, because obviously this is a dream, the dragonfly is like hovering in front of me, and I'm just like looking at it like annoyed as fuck, like, and I'm looking at like get away from me, like I don't want to deal with you. And I left it at that. I woke up, bust it. I was like, I'm gonna have to like really analyze this dream because I remembered so much detail. Spent the whole entire weekend analyzing this dream. And throughout all this, Sienna's like, just chilling by or whatever. And I'm like, okay. Whenever I would have my findings, I would sit there and share them with my dog. So in this dream right now, I have to analyze what the dragonfly is. The dragonfly means change. Okay. Whoop-de-doo. Like the recurring theme in my life. More change, right? But, it also unveiled other things. Like, so change is coming. I have to deal with my phobias, and I have to deal with loss. Well, at the time, I've never considered myself to be a person of phobias. Like, I know people who have claustrophobia. I know people who are afraid of deep water. I know people who have, different kinds of phobias. Arachnophobia, I've never been one to identify with phobias. But recently, I did identify that these two phobias, which is misophonia, which I'm going to make a video about that, which is like, you can't stand hearing people chew, or you're very sensitive to certain sounds. There's going to be a video on that. I'm going to have, I can't right now with that. And the other one is trypophobia, which is like irregular shaped holes or something like that. That's going to be another video because I'm not going to get into all of that. But those are like, I never saw them as like big phobias, you know what I'm saying? So if you're telling me that I'm just gonna have to deal with ASMR videos, or I gotta deal with, people's chewing in my ear, let me tell you something, that shit gets a reaction out of me. Yeah, y'all don't even know. That's just, I've been dealing with that shit since I was a child. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what to tell you. But other than that, like, as far as like a phobia, like a fear, you know what I'm saying? Misophonia brings out rage, and trypophobia makes me feel disgusted and even nauseated. But as far as like fears, I couldn't really think of anything. So I was like, okay, you know what? Fuck it. If I have a fear, right? Because you have to ask yourself the question, like, what could I possibly be afraid of? And the only thing that I could ever truly say that I was afraid of was the fear of not being able to get myself out of a situation. Okay? The fear of being defenseless. And a lot of that comes from, childhood trauma, right? Not, being powerless, being disempowered by your family, by pedophiles, by, men in general, whatever. So I just, need to, and obviously not having control, right? So like, if I'm out of control, then I'm like, I can't do anything for myself. Okay. So I go ahead and I Google, and I'm like, okay, fear of being defenseless. I got agoraphobia. Keep in mind that when I think about agoraphobia, I think about Sheila from the show Shameless. I don't know if any of y'all watch that, but I love Sheila. Sheila's the shit. But as I would read more, I was like, okay, I started to recognize patterns in myself. So as I analyze myself, I'm like, okay, I'm sitting there having a conversation with my dog. I'm telling her like, yo, baby puppy, like, I gotta do better. Like, I'm gonna have to like actually get out the house more and stop procrastinating when errands have to be run and blah blah blah, and I gotta start actually socializing a little bit more, you know what I'm saying? I've been single for like a grip. Like, I'm the virgin right now. I don't think the Virgin Mary has shit on me at this point. So, granted, I've been happy in my celibacy because I'm not out here trying to, put the pussy out there with the wrong people anyways. So so, you know, I'm sharing all of this with my dog, and I'm like, now as far as change, is that not the recurring theme, Sienna? Like, and then eventually I was like, well, as far as loss is concerned, I felt like I had lost friends. I was detached from I've always been kind of detached from both my parents, and they're divorced, but I've been detached from both of them. It's not that I blame one or the other for anything. It's just that was a religious fanatic. My mom's a Jehovah. And the other one kind of made me feel abandoned when I felt I needed him the most, you know? So that's going to be another video. I was like, maybe I should like check in, make sure that everybody's okay, because my mom is diabetic and I think my father was already showing signs of diabetic. I was like, I should probably check in on them. This was on Sunday, February 13th. February 14th comes around. It's Valentine's Day. Peach is out. I've had only single Valentine's Days for as long as I can remember at this point. So it's all the same shit to me. Sienna was eating her food, taking her naps, playing rebound with my son when he was playing little basketball hoops or whatever. It was a peachy day. So we go to bed that night, and then it's 3:30 in the morning, and my son knocks on my door, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I get startled. I'm like, what happened? He was like, Sienna's having a seizure. I was like, I get up, I go over there. He's like, she's not getting up. She can't get up. When I go out there, Sienna has suffered a little bit of incontinence, I guess, from this seizure. And she was just laid out on her side, on the floor. And, I just, I didn't know like what to do because I had just started this process with the doctor. Coincidentally, earlier that day, I had received an estimate about her further testing. It was going to be $630. So I was like, fuck it, I'll just put that shit on my credit card. Like, I don't give a shit. And then now this is happening. So I am a bit strapped for cash because the money that I had saved up for a whole year to hold me down so I can figure out my direction while I had just moved down to Wilmington, North Carolina, had basically run out, and I needed to contemplate getting a job. But I was also weaning myself off of weed because, like, I was a heavy smoker. I didn't have to worry about that shit when I was when I was working the trades, but I have to worry about that now because I'm going back into administrative work. So, while I'm dealing with these new changes that I have to take in place, now I'm like, well, I need to, how much is it going to cost for me to get her to an animal hospital? Fuck it. I got to take care of my dog. So, but it took a while, because I'm still familiarizing myself with the area and animal hospitals and how they do things down here. This is not New York, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. So I'm making phone calls. I called like 2 different animal hospitals, got the pricings and stuff like that. And between 3:30, it was like almost 5 o'clock. And then eventually I go ahead, I tell my son, yo, go take her to the car. I'm going to take her to the hospital. He goes, he picks her up, he takes her over. I run down there. I leave the house at 5 o'clock in the morning. She's breathing heavy. And halfway there, like, I hear her sigh. I'm like, don't worry, baby puppy. I got you. Keep in mind that before I left the house, even though she was kind of stiff, she managed to move a paw and she like put it on my chest. And I was like, don't worry, baby puppy, I'm going to get you the care. We're going to get you a doctor and you're going to be all right. I should have probably read that gesture a little better because after leaving the house, I go ahead and I get to the hospital. I come out to the back. I call them. I'm like, yo, yeah, I'm here. I need somebody to come help me get my dog because she's heavy and I can't pick her up. I go to the back seat and she's still and quiet. And I'm like shaking her. I'm like, Sienna, Sienna. And I see them coming out with the stretcher and I'm like, she's not breathing. They go ahead, they picked her up. They didn't even bother putting her on the stretcher. They just picked her up and they took her in through the side door. I go in through the regular door. And at this point, things start to get a little foggy, right? So it was like, I felt like it was like 2 minutes, maybe three. And then the doctor's like, can I speak to you for a minute? So I go to the side, like this little area or whatever, and she explains to me, she's like, yes, so we were giving her CPR. It turns out she had a tumor in her stomach and it ruptured. Okay. So she's like, so, we knew right away that it was that we saw the swelling in the belly and, we touched and we knew automatically. Okay. So what do we do now? And at this point, she must have realized that shit was not sinking in. Like, I was not getting the memo. So she had to be direct. She was like, yes, so she's deceased. And it was like over for me. So she was like, do you want us to bring her out so you can say your goodbye? And I was like, yes. So then she walked out. I picked up, I took my phone. I can feel something rising within me, but if any if anybody watches Twilight and they saw Breaking Dawn Part 2, it's almost kind of like Bella Swan when she was turning into a vampire, okay? Where she was like motionless on the outside, but she was like on fire in the inside. It was like that, okay? So I call my son and I tell him this reality and I start to break down. And I can hear him breaking down. I left at 5 o'clock in the morning, and at 5:30 I was back in my house. And when they brought Sienna out for me to say my goodbye, all I could do was like I'm rubbing her and I'm telling her I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I wish I could have done more. You would think that I'd be fucking done with this shit because this has been me the past 2 days. I wish I could have done more. I wish I could have had, got, I should have known. Like I should have known, right? So I get to my house. I go straight into my room. Like I said, it's 5:30 in the morning. And I curl up in my bed near the edge. My son his cat was 6 months old at the time. And she jumped in the bed with me. And she curled up by my stomach, baby spooning. And like I said, I had stopped smoking weed. And you would think that at this point, like I would give myself a pass and just like, smoke a blunt, But I already felt like I had failed my dog and I just couldn't make excuses for myself and disappoint myself. So I wake up The next day, well, I wake up in 3 hours because I basically got a nap, right? I go on Facebook, I make one post with one picture. And I say, I'm going through this. I lost my dog, you know. And the picture was of Elsa in the movie Frozen when Anna went to let her know, that the parents had been buried. And that's that scene where like her bedroom is like frozen, and all you see are like flakes of snow just in suspension in the air. Okay, that's that's what I was. That's the closest that I can explain what I felt and what I was going through. And there was this reality of, oh my goodness, I am fine. I'm like truly alone because regardless of the fact that I have my kids I'm not that parent. Like, I don't live vicariously through my kids. I put my kids on this earth so that so that they go through their rites of passage. All I care about is that I did not put out pieces of shit into the world. That's all I care about. I'm not out here trying to tell my kids, you got to take care of me. You got to do this for me. You got to do that for me. I'm not that parent. Okay. So in the end, if the nest becomes empty, it's just me. Well, bestie calls. She's like, "Oh no, don't say that. You're not alone. You're not alone." And I look at the cat and I realize, the cat goes to Sienna's bed because she used to go ahead and curl up with Sienna, and that's when it hit me like, yo, she's grieving too. So I go ahead and kind of like a girl when she goes through a bad breakup and she starts to watch chick flicks, I decided I was gonna watch Frozen. I watch Frozen, I go through my emotions, and then I follow it with Frozen 2. And then I'm sitting there watching Frozen 2, and I get to the part where Olaf is turning into fairies because of apparently Elsa's demise. So, you know, you see Anna, and she's trying to like keep Olaf together, and Olaf is like, he looks at her, he's like, Anna, you're gonna have to do this part on your own. And that shit broke me. Message received. This dream had hit me like a bag of bricks. And just as soon as I deciphered that goddamn dream, everything crashed down immediately. And as soon as I had that realization, it was like I just realized that I have a problem. Like now I am faced. Now it's not just knowing that I have some level of agoraphobia. It's the panic because I was codependent on my dog. And now I have to face this shit by myself. How am I going to find it in me to step out of the house? How am I going to find it in me to be happy and alone? How am I going to find it in me to face my fears, my challenges? How? You know? When everybody's out living their lives and I can't even figure out mine. This is 2022. I'm what, 42 years old? And when you stop to reflect like what your life is at that particular moment, you start to question everything. Like, what have I accomplished? Where am I in this life? Am I doing what I'm meant to do? Am I serving my purpose? Like all these life questions start to hit you. And I had no one to share that with. And now I'm back in 2015, white knuckling myself through all my psychiatric breakdowns. Except I have no weed, I have no medication. All I have is me and an energy healing book. That's it. My grieving process was cut short because my mom ended up having to move in with me because she was waiting on an apartment. That was fun. And now it's like, what am I going to do? And I had lost all sense of direction. And I had just created this channel. And I didn't even, I had no direction. I didn't know what to post, what to say, what to do. All I had was my grief, my loneliness, and my phobias, empath problems. So, with that being said, I made a promise to myself. Sienna's 3-year anniversary is coming up on February 15th. And I have to let her go. Because right now, for the past few years, she's been sitting on my TV stand right beneath my TV with her paw print. And I understand that I have to make room for healing. And I have to release that so that I can then tend to my other wounds and heal from those things too. And I've made a lot of progress. I've come a long way, but the journey's never over. So if there's anybody out there dealing with grief, dealing with change, dealing with trauma, dealing with how age, progression, the tendency to compare yourselves to other people, I hope that this reaches you. And I hope that it helps you and that it helps you move forward. Helps you understand that you're not alone and there is nothing wrong with that. Cuz I've been thinking about that for a while and then you gain nothing from it. So, I'm making that promise to myself and I'm going to release Sienna to the universe and I'm going to do better for me. And I hope that you are able to do better for you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.